Asharite. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome guys. Today I'm going to prove occasionalism with one step. Okay, I'm going to show you how you can arrive at occasionalism just by one step. So let's say you have a human being, okay, an existing human being, and he's about to take his next step. Okay, so you take one step. I'm going to show you why this is for this to be possible. Occasionalism has to be true. Okay, that's what this video is all about. So now, what are the things that we require for you to be able to take that next step? Okay, so now the first one is this: if you admit that you exist, okay, and your existence is contingent on God, okay. So if your existence is contingent on God, that's the first thing. That means for you to exist, God has to will you into existence. Okay, that is the first one you have to do. So you exist. You're not doing anything yet. You just exist. Now, if you want to take one step for it to be possible, you have to continue to exist. So if you grant me that you exist, you might say, okay, God created me and that's it. Now I'm free. Or you can be a deist and say, God created us and he doesn't care. But if you believe that God created us and he sustains us, that means for your continued existence, God has to continually sustain you in existence. If not, you go out of existence. You wouldn't exist anymore. So if it is by God's will that you exist, and it is by God's will that you continue to exist, therefore, when you want to take that next step, you need to continue to exist for it to be possible. Okay? So therefore, when you say, so you exist and you want to take the next step, if you go out of existence, before you take that next step, it's not possible, right? Right? Therefore, what I'm showing you is that if you grant me that you exist by the will of God and your continued existence is contingent or dependent on God, occasionalism is true from that. Because your notion of power, when people want to defend secondary power, is the idea that you have some kind of power to continue to do an act. But my argument is that if you don't exist, no action can be done. If you don't exist, for you to do that act of changing direction, okay, you move from here to here. If you don't exist, it wouldn't be possible. So if it is God that is sustaining you in existence, therefore it is God that you should ascribe that power to. So la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah now has true meaning. And there's even, by the way, let me add something else. There's a narration that talks about the qalb, or even the soul, that whenever we sleep, our soul literally asks Allah, should I come back? Or something like that. Should I come back into the body? And there's another one that talks about the heartbeat. So when your heart is beating, there are some narrations that talks about for each beat it makes, it asks its Lord, should I continue beating? You see, all of this shows you that for it to continue to function, it's dependent on God. But there's more. For it to continue to exist itself, it's dependent on God. If it grants me, your existence is dependent on God, and your continued existence is dependent on God, nothing in there can you ever show that you have power. All power will be given back to the one that sustains you and that created you in the first place. So you don't have power. That's all I'm trying to show in this video. So for a step that you want to take, for each step that you take, you have to understand that it is actually God allowing you to do that, allowing you, keeping you in existence for that to be possible. Okay, so you know, normally the way we explain occasionalism is a kind of mechanistic something. So people even use puppets, but we don't need to do that. If you just understand the idea of providence, or what I just told you about sustaining existence, then my point is made. Because all I need for occasionalism to be true is that the ultimate, the one that decides what happens is God. If you grant me that, because you see the Asharite, they made an analogy. They said, when God has control over something, you cannot have that control. And if you have control over something, you cannot say God has control over it. So if you say you have control over something and God has control over it, it's either 50-50 or some kind of percentage, or it is over determination. And that's what we are saying. The moment you say that your existence is dependent on God and your continued existence is dependent on God, therefore, occasionally all power has to go back to God. Because if, imagine you say you have a power. Let's say I say I have power now. So this is one case. You say you have power. Now let's exercise that power. You're about to take your next step. What if God says no and you try to move and it's not possible? So how do you explain that? Okay, your power is not working anymore because you didn't have that power in the first place. When you walk, because God lets it happen every single time, you have ascribed that you have power to it, but you don't realize that behind every act that you think you're doing, it is actually God letting it happen. And the alternative to this would be to say that, to have a kind of deistic understanding of God, or to kind of limit God's power, that God is somehow not controlling that. Just like the Asharite said, that if you say, is either we give control to you and God doesn't have control over that, okay, or we give it all back to God. So which one do you want to take? We simply say God is in full control of everything in existence. Everything, single thing in existence, God is aware of it. The leaves, movement, every single thing. It wouldn't be possible if God didn't create it, if God doesn't continually sustain it. So I hope my point is made, that the next time you take a step, you understand that you don't have power to take that step. It's actually God that wills it for it to be possible. So let me see what you guys think in the comment section. See you guys later. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.